Hello everyone, my name is Mike and I am the co-founder of the Wanda Pratnika Center. In the last podcast I have spoken about diverse diseases and how they are connected to the phenomenon of spirit possession. Today I would like to add some additional information. Then I would like to go over to spiritual practices without the proper preparation. And the first issue is a very sad one and is a very painful truth. It is about the situation where parents are sabotaging their children's recovery from illnesses. Unfortunately, many parents seek help for their children as long as they are more or less sure that it's not going to work. There are many children who could be helped, but their parents have become so attached to that illness, to the sympathy of the environment, to the compassion that people are approaching people in difficult situations. They have taken upon an identity of a suffering parent, and that is giving them a sense of being special, and therefore they unconsciously, I repeat, unconsciously sabotage their recovery. They search for help everywhere, but the moment a real help is happening, they withdraw. And here is a story of a single mother who turned for help to us for her son. And shortly after the cleansing process started, she withdrew from the process because he has become better and therefore he might lose his disability pension. And very fortunately, the cleansing process worked really fast. This was an autistic son, and suddenly she had a great dilemma because a healthy boy who knew nothing about the world, he couldn't at that time even speak. So how could he be able to face the challenges of an underdeveloped child? However, her biggest concern was the fact that if he recovered, they would just lose the money she was getting from the state for her son. She therefore demanded us to stop. However, the spirit was very happy about the fact that he has been removed from the child, and therefore he didn't want to come back to the kid. At the same time, the boy learned incredibly fast, and he skipped 2 grades in one single year. So one day the pension was revoked. However, he has gotten a scholarship and finally graduated with honors. And that was the moment when his mom was removed from her son. She suddenly died. The next story is about a mom who took her 3 healthy children to the cemetery every single day until 2 of them got sick. When being on the cemetery, she just noticed small graves of children, and that moment she has started to feel very, very guilty. Her thinking was, why should she have 3 healthy children when other mother had only 1 that died? She told their children to constantly think about the fact on how lucky they were to be alive and healthy. The next day, when she went to the cemetery again, 1 of the children collapsed. An ambulance was called, and the next day the 2nd child fell ill. And after looking very exactly into the issue, we have discovered that the spirits who were residing on the cemetery, they possessed 2 of the kids. In the course of the cleansing process, the spirits were keeping coming back. So why had this happened? Well, it was because of the guilty feeling of the mom who was constantly projecting that guilty feeling onto their children. So they started to feel guilty themselves, and in order to punish themselves for being healthy, they have attracted the spirits over and over. And the interesting issue is that the eldest child explained it to us very perfectly. When our mom told us to feel sorry for being healthy, I thought, I am not going to do that because as an outcome of that, I might die. However, my brother and sister, they've listened to mom and now they are very sick. When the cleansing process started and has shown results, she was requesting us to stop because she said that she was willing to carry the cross. And she was explaining that there is so much suffering in this world and that she feels it wouldn't be the right decision for not taking that burden on her. Unfortunately, the children were, after years, still bedridden, barely speaking. The father of the children took the healthy daughter and moved to another part of the country to save her. Here you can see how parents can use their children for their own psychological needs. In many cases of our cleansing processes, the moment the person understands what's actually happening to them, they are starting to recover. It is not the removal of spirits alone. It is about the shift in consciousness that prevents the spirits from returning. And that shift of consciousness is the most important aspect in every cleansing process. The cleansing process is only for a short time or a longer time, removing the entity, but still the work of the person who is in need is the most important one. Now I would like to leave that very, very sad subject and go over to the dangers of esoteric practices that don't have the proper preparation. Throughout the history, esoteric training took years, sometimes decades, sometimes several incarnations, and there is a very good reason for that. The soul has to become prepared for the power that is originating from such learning. Today, you can buy books on various subjects that were hidden throughout the ages. Sometimes I would like to say to it that very sharp knives have been given to people. Today it's very easy to buy books about raising the Kundalini energy, very, very dangerous. Even instructions on how to do dark magic, and you can buy it at any bookstore. You can read about it in the internet. Also, weekend courses are promising that you are going to become skills that previously needed a lifetime of preparation. This is creating a really dangerous illusion that such a knowledge is harmless, that you can get into it just like that. And here's another story. A wife of a professor came to us and asked us for help. The problem was that her husband has been diagnosed with one of the most severe mental illnesses. And unfortunately the wife was psychic and she secretly invited other clairvoyants to watch the cleansing procedure. And during that remote cleansing, the spirit went into a very, very violent fury. He was throwing the professor against walls and he harmed other people. The entire apartment was just demolished. Later on it turned out that he has attracted the spirit deliberately. He wanted to see how it is to communicate with spirits. He thought that if he had the power to let the spirit in, he would also have the power to remove it. As you can see, this is in most cases only a one-way door. Very fortunately, the professor was, after the cleansing procedure, completely free, and the problem with his mental illness never returned. A different story is about a healer, a very talented, young, experienced and beautiful woman. and she all of a sudden vanished without a trace. After around a year, she called our office and she only managed to whisper, "I am allowed to call you. This is the only one call I have from the psychiatric hospital." And she asked my wife Wanda for help. What was going on the whole last year? Well, she had a client and the client was very sick and she was possessed. And instead of leading that person to a professional, she just tried to do the cleansing herself. And that in person, face to face, which is very, very dangerous. It was very, very strange because she has been warned never to do things like that. That moment of the cleansing process done by herself, the spirit immediately possessed her. She spent over a year in a psychiatric clinic, enduring injections that contracted her muscles, and she has gotten many electroshock treatments. Very fortunately, she recovered really fast, and then, after a time, she came back and she said, "My lesson was that I did not have humility before the knowledge I have gotten before. I illusionary thought that I am strong enough for that." So many people are attending courses and they get initiated and they work really hard to open their third eye. And when they are successful, they are very, very horrified. They start to see the aura, the astral world, the horror of the astral world. They see the spirits, and then they are panicking, and the spirits very easily and fast are connecting to that panic. And what is the worst part in that? They very often cannot turn it off. Every day they are praying to God to take back what they worked on so hard to get, and almost any of them are asking the question, why didn't any one of the course tell me what to expect? So here is a short message to teachers and workshop leaders. You are carrying the responsibility. You might not even realize that some of your students are starting to fall apart shortly after your courses. It's not the course itself that is doing the harm. You are just teaching an age-old knowledge, and the students pretty often were not ready for that. The primary duty of the teacher is to just make sure that the student is grown up spiritually enough. Anyone who is on the path of spirituality must be extremely psychologically balanced, and they must be very honest people. Honest in front of themselves and honest in front of others. Once a person is stepping onto that path, every dishonesty is going to turn against them immediately. And therefore, those who call themselves masters, fortune tellers, tarot readers, energy healers, and exorcists themselves are then seeking help because they have forgotten this fundamental rule that knowledge requires responsibility. Okay. I would like to thank you very much for listening to this podcast, and I say until next time, bye-bye.